Well, hey everybody, this is Christopher Abram with Hunter's Playground, a place where people who love everything spooky and scary come to play. And this is a haunted house that I designed and built and then sold it to a client, and then like a couple of years later he sold it to the place where it's at now, and that client hired me to come up and finish detailing it out and to operate it for a month and a half. And so I did. And this is the line queue that they had set up. We tried to add as much stuff. This is actually before we ever officially opened. So it was kind of like needing to get all this before, you know how running a haunted house, things can get damaged. So I wanted to get this preserved for the client before stuff got damaged. Unfortunately, the facade did get damaged because after it got set up, a huge snowstorm came in and knocked it over, as well as like a third of the show got. This is a tent show. It's what we call a turnkey haunted house, and those two guys there were employed by the client because it is at a family fun center. Basically, go-karts and putt-putt and all that kind of stuff. So now we're inside the shock asylum. The shock asylum is basically supposed to be an old-style mental hospital. And so this is the entry room where you would come in and, a waiting area. We would a lot of times tell the patrons as they came in, we let in groups of 8 to 10 people at a time. And this is the room where we usually told them, more about the theme and stuff, but we would keep everything in theme. So instead of telling them, hey, don't touch the people, the actors, we would say, don't touch any of the patients here, they will not touch you. Everything was always to be in theme. And as you can see, it's all made out of wood, but we tried to make things look like metal when we could. The walls here are textured with what people call now monster mud, but this room was pretty much pitch black, and it's called the Mad Pit. And so this is where actors would be able to jump around from these different areas, as you see, that are boarded up. They some of those wood panels are loose, and so they would bang them and make lots of noise, but the patrons would have to kind of figure their way through the room. And so the actors were able to jump around, and it really got them disoriented right off the start for this house. And as you can see, right there is a tech door, and that goes into a hallway that runs down the middle of the entire show. So it's basically the spine of the show. And we had a tech door to every single room, and that way we could be anywhere in the house and get to any other room within 30 seconds. And here's one of our cool down hallways. So they just got, hopefully they got really scared in that first room, and now we're letting them cool down a little bit, and hopefully there's this anxiety that's now in them of trying to figure out what's coming next. And since it's a hospital theme, we went and bought actual hospital equipment, old equipment, stuff that didn't work anymore, and we placed it throughout pretty much just the first half of this haunted house. And there's one of the tables now. That was actually a table that they used in a gynecologist office. Here's the electro zombie room. We'll just skip right ahead and start talking about that. That is the electro zombie. Pretty much every mask that we use in any of our haunted houses are specially created for us, and they were created by an effects artist named Joe Riley, who's passed away. But if you're familiar with group Guar, he did their costumes, and that flashing in the fuse panel was not a flash cracker, but just a strobe light. This is before flash crackers even existed. There you can see that tube sticking out. We were blowing cold air. They were supposed to be at this point walking through basically like the busted up air conditioning unit. And one of the 3 or 4 wheelchairs we had, and there is I believe that was used to do blood dialysis. I can't remember. I know a lot of these came with a lot of glass bottles and stuff, and of course, you don't want glass in a haunted house, and so we would have to get rid of a lot of it. But we were still left with cool old hospital equipment. We would always print our signs out or use templates. We don't like having handwritten signs. We think it just kind of drops out of the theming. This area right here is called the padded cells, and we had straight jackets. We made them to where they were just velcroed in the back, so the actors weren't actually strapped in, but they were real straight jackets. Now they have prop straight jackets. Here's more lab equipment and stuff. We use the chicken wire, kind of dual purpose. Some areas had props that, if you messed with, they were just going to fall apart or be torn up. Or some areas were they were connected to the techway, and we would have actors running from one spot to another. And so we would have to secure those areas so the patrons couldn't get into them. That way the actors, if they left the tech doorways open, a patron wouldn't wind up in our tech hallway where we shot, fog into all the rooms through the tech hallway. All the fire extinguishers for the haunted house were in there. Everything technically needed for the haunted house was in our tech hallway. And so we just walked through another cool down hallway, and here's another nurses area. This was called the slam desk scare, and it would scare them. That's all the nurse did was there was a wooden panel that we put hinges on, and whatever actor was back there would just slam that thing down and scare the snot out of them. Our actors did not and were not supposed to do any talking. It's pretty much the way the place is set up is the patrons were to just be walking through a mental hospital. Now, some of the actors in like the padded cells that were supposed to be crazy, we allowed them to do gibberish, but never, doing the stereotypical fresh meat or anything like that. It was chaotic laughter and screaming, but nothing that was ever talking to the patrons. It was almost like the patrons were just there witnessing the chaos and mayhem that was taking place, and sometimes those people would come at them, and sometimes they would just be in the middle of it all. And the way a lot of these signs are, we had little lights that would light those up, but a lot of times people aren't there to really read, but sometimes you want the signs so they can see them. Now, that spider is about 6 feet long, and in the back part, about 3 feet thick. And the white that is sprayed on that material, because of the strobe, that's all you would see is the white. And so it looked like a big spider web going through there, but if anybody tried to get to it, they wouldn't be able to. And if you've noticed, you're seeing exit signs all over the place. We had 17 exits. That's not including the front door and the exiting door at the end of the house, but 17 emergency exits around the entire thing. So every 20 linear feet, someone could get to an exit. It's just one of the safety things we always did. Now, that is very unsafe. I will never put corrugated aluminum or metal in a haunted house again, because I have 13 stitches from that. And here's the second half of the house, where it starts getting really kind of sci-fi. Back when this house was done, science fiction was cool with haunted houses. Now, not so much. And there's another Joe Riley effect. We called him Splat. And we put special lighting on him because he would gross people out. And it's kind of hard to pick up on this video, but we made sure that there was just enough lighting that people would see it. I mean, it was nasty looking. There on that fire exit, you can see a little light. They don't make those lights anymore, but they were kind of the predecessors to LED lights. They were 12-volt lighting system, and so that's what I would light the entire house with, except for some areas have specialty lighting, and you'll see those in a minute. It's mostly on this sci-fi side, and there you can see we had rope lights, and really works for the science fiction theme. The way the houses were designed were for distraction. So here you see all these little bug critter things that are half organic, half mechanical, and a lot of plumbers tubing or irrigation tubing. It's easy to take up space with those things, and you can shoot through a lot of fog through them if you get the ones that are totally enclosed. And here we used great stuff around doors that were supposed to have been eaten through with these bugs. And here there's a little light behind that door. Here we have somebody who's gotten fused into the wall, and more scares. That's actually a double scare. So when you were in the previous room, you would get scared by that actor, and then they would turn around and scare you there. And then that door was a scare. It's kind of hard to point out where all the scares are. We always scare from the back. We don't scare from the front unless we have to slow the groups down. We made sure that we gave enough time between each group that they wouldn't knew where pretty much everything went. But with these houses, you either walk people around in a room in the shape of a U or the shape of an S. That way you can get, you want to wind them through rooms as much as possible. You don't want straight shots, or they'll zip right through a room and they could totally miss a scare, or they'll be going through it too fast. And so there's a huge prop, a full alien pod that Joe Riley made. And we still have the molds for all those, so we could still make them now if we wanted to. But straight shots, you can have patrons get hurt from those, because if you're doing a good job scaring them, then when they hit a straight shot, they're going to start running and build up speed. And we very rarely have black walls in our haunted houses unless that's part of the theme of a room. Our techways are black. That way, if you're going through the techway, there's little holes in the lower parts of the walls, so we can shoot fog into those rooms. But we have little holes higher up, so you can almost use them as little peepholes, so you can see where the patrons are. And even though you have all this twisting and winding and going around, we could still vacate a full show, which by doing the pacing and allowing a group in every 30 to 45 seconds, you could end up with a full crew and a bunch of groups. You could have over 300 people in the show, and we could evacuate the entire show in under a minute. We had 2 shows at one location in an 8,000 square foot graveyard, and we evacuated, and that was all indoors, not outdoors like this one. This one's under a tent. We evacuated 2 shows in an 8,000 square foot graveyard packed full of people in under a minute. So we're very safety conscious with what we do. And now the walls look black, but they were actually kind of a real dark silver. And normally we wouldn't ever do that. We wouldn't hand paint a sign or spray paint a sign, but patrons can seem to figure out how to get out, and that's why we put it there. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll have a nighttime walkthrough coming up, so keep a lookout for it.